Real estate is the fast track, the only track, as far as I'm concerned, that you can take you to the promised land where you create financial freedom and generational wealth for not only yourself but for your family.
We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the CashFlowPro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to the CashFlowPro podcast and channel. I am here today with Van Sturgeon, and Van has recently told me he is in the Toronto area, so he is looking at possibly some warmer weather at some point in his near future. So, Van, how are you today, sir?
I am doing really well, Casey. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while now. We had to do a little bit of rescheduling mumbo jumbo, but we're finally getting an opportunity to talk. So great stuff. I'm a fan of yours,
Absolutely.
so I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Well, we're so glad to have you here, and from speaking for all of the listeners, we're glad to hear we're looking forward to hearing your story, where you've been, how you got to where you are today, and anything that may be of value to the listeners that might help them, just whether it's a little bump they're trying to get over or whether it's a mountain they're trying to climb. We want to give them something that might be able to help them. So why don't you start by just kind of telling us, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, but I want you to just kind of tell us where you got started, maybe a little bit of backstory about, things maybe you took in as you were a kid or whatever that kind of got you into the real estate game. And I think specifically the value add stuff is something that really gets looked over. A lot of misinformation and a lot of things that people want to learn about. So go ahead, man. Tell us where you've been, where you're going.
Sure, and I appreciate you again having me on. Well, I'm a product of the '60s. I'm a bunch of years older than you, and probably a lot of folks out there listening to this podcast. And born and raised in Chicago to immigrant parents, and as all immigrant parents will want, they want the best, live in the American dream. Ultimately, they
Yep.
wanted to, they were saving up their monies to be able to run out and buy their first dream home. And we were living
Yep.
in a one-bedroom apartment, the four of us, along with my little brother, in Chicago on the north side. And as they're working their little tails off, my parents, saving up money, they discovered that the apartment building they were staying in had actually gone up for sale. So instead of actually transitioning to looking for their dream home, they went into becoming landlords. They scoured friends, family. They got put the initial down payment down, and they went ahead and they purchased this apartment building. And this happened in the late '70s, '77, I think it was, '78, somewhere in that range. So they bought the building, and it was fully occupied. Uh, Everything was wonderful. And then all of a sudden, pretty quickly, dramatically, sort of what we're going through right now, the economy started to change. And being through that period of time, you could see how quickly it moved. Interest rates started to skyrocket. The economy was starting to get very sluggish. It was getting bad. Unemployment rate was up around 10, 12%. The rent hostage situation was going on at that time. There was a real malaise in the economy, and just it was palpable. It was a miserable time. And that's where you started to see this mass migration of folks out of the city going out in the suburbs as the crime and prostitution and drugs, all that kind of started to move in. And literally the neighborhood that we were living in was a nice neighborhood. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, it was just an average neighborhood in Chicago. And it started to fall on hard times. And as
And what year is this?
this was started, is this really got it rolling around 79, 80. It was
Okay,
just around the
that's
time
kind of
where,
what I assumed, but
yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. No, it's just around the time where Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan did that transition over. I think it was in 80, 81 was when Reagan stepped in. It was just a really miserable time, man. To the point where landlords like my parents, they were up and down the street. There were some folks that just couldn't hold on and literally were torching their buildings to collect insurance money. So walking
Oh,
through my neighborhood, it was wonderful. It was an average class kind of neighborhood. You started to see, building burned out there, building burnt out there, because it was just a desperate time.
oh
It
my
was,
God.
oh yeah, it was a really, and even to this day, the neighborhoods you could walk through, you can see some of the scarring on the brick from when they were torched. Like
Mm,
literally the buildings were set off. So in this environment, my family, we didn't have a rich uncle to call upon, and
okay.
we what we had to do is we had to do everything that possible to maintain this investment. So we
Mm,
literally did everything from cleaning toilets, painting walls, roof work, windows, plumbing, electrical, you name it. We did it all ourselves, and it was sometimes trial by error, sometimes whatever it was. We did everything we could. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't do any of that. And
yep.
so we're able to hold on to the investment. It turned out to be a great. It was great. We were able to get through. Yeah, it was the best thing that my parents could have done. And ultimately, we got through that period. I went off to university, graduated, had aspirations of being an attorney.
Yeah.
But I broke the bad news to my parents. I couldn't see, I couldn't be that guy, that cat fish and paper. I wasn't that guy. So I broke the,
Yep.
like every parent's dream is to see their kid dressed up in a three-piece suit and alligator shoes, and I wasn't that guy. So ultimately, I broke the bad news. I told him I want to get into being a general contractor. I loved the whole idea of renovation, stuff like that. So in the
Yeah.
late '80s, I started running around Chicago. And creating relationships on the hustle, doing a little job here, there, and started to grow my business.
Yep.
And as I was going along, I started to run into these same cats, these same real estate investors who were buying property, flipping them, buying property, holding on to them. And it really exposed me to something that I hadn't really been involved in. And that's when I
Yeah.
started to. I started in 1991 was my first flip where I dipped my toe in and got off that proverbial fence, and I bought my first property. And Casey, let me tell you, it was a real eye opener because I bought it for 40 some odd thousand, spent about 17,000 dollars in renovations. And anyways, make all long story short, about 5 months, I was able to make around $30,000 in profit from it.
Ooh,
And
man.
I think in perspective, back then, like lawyers and probably people like that were making, it was a yearly salary for folks back then in 1991. 30, $30,000 is a lot of money. And it
Yes,
really opened
absolutely.
my eyes to the opportunities of real estate, and it got me hooked. So as I was growing my general contracting business, it was cash flowing. I was pushing it into real estate investing and doing the flips, and eventually into a portfolio. Started to buy and hold, and I got to the point where I was around 100 some odd doors, and then I created a property management company because it didn't make sense for me to hire a third party. I did it on my
Sure.
own. And as I was doing that on my own, and these relationships that I had with other real estate investors would come knock on my door and say, "Well, here you can manage my property, my portfolio as well." So
There
I never
you go.
planned any of this out, Casey. It just I've been very, very, very blessed. I'm very so thankful that of where I have how life has led me. Like there have been obviously through
Sure.
everyone's life, there's been low times and difficult times, but overall, I've been very blessed. And over 30 years now, I've gotten to the point where I own around over 1,200 doors right now, spread across
Awesome.
four states, 4 areas.
Yeah.
And I'm semi-retired right now. I've got some great people that are in my organization through partners or employees that look after my affairs. And right now I'm just enjoying life. I'm 56 years old, so doing what I did over 30 years it's taking a lot of out of me, and I just literally have done thousands of renovations and flips and stuff like that, from apartments
Sure.
to single family to multifamily. So right now, I spend my time getting out to podcasts like this, writing a lot of content, doing events, seminars, where my focus is really helping real estate investors, whether single family or multifamily, really
Sure.
figure out that renovation component, the value add component associated. Because we're all in the business, if we're real estate investors, we're all in the business of trying to find that ugly duckling, that diamond in the rough, right?
I'm in the rough.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
so we don't want to pay top dollar, but we want to get a discount. But
Yep.
in exchange for that discount, often that property is maligned. There's some issues associated with it.
Yep.
And so when
Yep.
we acquire that property, just as much as it's important to find that great deal, let me tell you,
Yep.
it's just as important to have that value add renovation component figured out and be successful at it. Because I've seen,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can vouch for it. I've seen so many great deals go down the tubes where you don't know what you're doing. You over renovate or you hire the wrong contractor. The contractor disappears, and it's just a project that was supposed to take 2 months takes six, and all of a sudden if
Yep.
you're relying on hard money lenders a couple of $1,000s a month, all of a sudden all the profit went out the window. So there is
That's
a
right.
system and a process that I've developed over the years of doing this so many times that I'm out there helping people and showing them what it is. And I take a holistic approach when I'm
Hmm.
dealing with folks. But really specifically, that renovation value add is really something that a lot of people don't like talking about. That's really the reason why I got involved in this thing, talking, is because a lot of people dramatize the whole, raising money and doing a syndication and it's so easy to just buy. The Hollywood's romanticized this whole thing about
That's right.
buy it and you just 30 minutes later you made $30,000 or ten thousand
Yep.
dollars. Well, you and
Yep.
I
And
know
they
that.
don't go in.
Yeah,
None of that process is ever defined, and like you said, your holistic approach. So,
yeah.
real quick, I want to. You've said, I think you've mentioned the term semi-retired a couple of different times, and I know, as a fellow, I guess you might call a serial entrepreneur, whatever the case is. Do you ever see that word semi leaving your life? Do you foresee there ever being a time when you're fully retired? I know this may be for the end of the discussion, but I want to hear what if you think that this is like, because to me, once you're bitten by this bug of whether it be investing or whether it be real estate, just the vision of seeing something start from nothing and build into something, it almost becomes intoxicating, really.
I love the question. It's just such a great question. 3 years ago,
Uh
three
huh.
years or so ago, right before this pandemic, I had a health scare, and that's where everything
Yep.
grinded to a halt, and it made me, forced me to look at what I was doing to myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and not only to myself but also my family, because I was
Yep.
the kind of cat that would wake up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, was out of the house, and I wouldn't be back until 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
Missed birthdays, missed weddings. I even got to the point, Casey. Looking back, I couldn't believe. I can't, I don't know how my wife put up with it. I bought a building when I got married. I had purchased an apartment building, and I forego my honeymoon because the closing day was a couple of days after my. It just happened to be like that. That I
Uh huh.
forego my honeymoon. I pushed it out a year later to go on my honeymoon because I just had bought an apartment building. That's how
I
screwed
bet
up
she
I
was.
was.
I bet she was excited about that.
Well, I'm
That
telling
was
you,
the greatest.
God bless her. So I put my family through a lot, and as a result, I decided, okay, I gotta change things up. So I did what I did, and as I mentioned, I got some great employees, I got some great partners, I've got a number of businesses that are on the go right now, and I just got retired. But the problem was I was struggling because I'm the kind of guy that needs to do something. And
Yep.
so I was whittling away, doing nothing, and it was really irritating. I was getting depressed. And all of a sudden, about 2 months, 2 years ago or so, something like that, I get a phone call out of the blue. It says, "Hey, you know what? I'm friends of ours that were looking to renovate their house, and they're struggling. And they knew, as I had done through, over the 30 years of this, people come to me and said, 'Hey, can you help me out with this and help me out with that?' And I've done. I built
Yep.
houses, I built subdivisions, and so I know a lot. So I
Yep.
went on to help these folks, and I really enjoyed the interaction and the help, and then they got what they wanted. They were able to save money, and then empowered them. And
Yep.
so I enjoyed the process. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later after that, I was talking to a real estate investor friend of mine who happens to be a coach. I told him of the experience I had. And he's like, well, you should be surprised at how many people need your type of help because all this books are out there talking about this, that, and the other, but nobody really wants to talk about this side of the business, and you'd be great at it. And so that's where it really started this thing. So to answer your question, I have found my passion. I'm on a mission right now to create 1 million real estate investors by 2030. 1 million millionaires out of real estate investing by 2030. That's my mission in life. And I'm going to do everything that I can to get out there to preach a good word, to be able to show real estate, Casey, we just got to get the word out. But real estate is the fast track, the only track, as far as I'm concerned, that you can take you to the promised land where you create financial freedom and generational wealth for not only yourself, but for your family.
That's right. Make the return, reinvest the return, then reinvest that return, then reinvest that return, and that snowball grows. And once it gets big enough, then it really starts to grow fast.
Absolutely. It's the power, the leverage, ability to leverage, the power of real estate is fantastic. And
Yeah. Now, I had to get the semi-retired question out of the way because that was really just at the top of my mind because I always wonder what life will look like for a lot of us when we get to that point, and so, but I want to kind of pull back a little bit and go back to because the way you described the burned out buildings and the stuff in Chicago, and I think a lot of people, for our community, there was that same time period wasn't necessarily burned out apartment buildings, but it was abandoned farms or farmland, being everybody was in the same boat, I guess, if you will. I don't think there was just anybody I've ever talked to who were like, man, other than myself, because I was born in 1981. But other than me and my fellow 81ers, I don't know that there's a lot of people that are like, man, that was the best year ever. That was just such an awesome, or at least that little time period. So, but at the same time, there is the same could possibly be said for like '07, '08, '09, where, we remember down in the military community close to where I live, you would have of 10 houses, you had 8 in foreclosure, 1 occupied, and 1 homeowner that was actually living there. And you had grass 4 foot tall. And so a lot of those times have repeated themselves, maybe not necessarily in that quite a dramatic fashion of burning out buildings. But the thing is that a lot of people, the people who have made money during or after that, are the people that had vision to say, like you said, your parents were like, hey, we're not giving up on this, and that fortitude and the ability to just kind of, no matter how big the thorns got, keep pulling yourself up. I mean, man, that's unreal, and that's such a dramatic part of your story. So much so that I felt like, a lot of people get to a point where they think, man, I can't get up over this little hump, when in fact that's all it is a little hump, and they can't see. But man, that's such a unbelievable spot to be in, and then witness it firsthand, basically your parents saying, no, we're not those people, we forge forward. I mean, that had to be a heck of a life lesson.
absolutely. And in the face of it's a roller coaster, and it's a long period of time. It wasn't a 2 month, 6 month period, and all of a sudden there you could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is a
Yeah.
protracted period of time. And I remember walking through our building, and we had 40, 50, 60% vacancy. It was a rough time. I stood in line for cheese and artificial milk because the times were not pleasant, and it really it was a difficult time. But nevertheless, we had to do what we had to do, and we were in it to survive, and thankfully we were able to get through it. And those are types of experiences that give you that shape my life. Positive and
Sure.
negatively shape your life. And so I for better or for worse, the reason why I was able to be successful in business was I am tenacious. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get
Yep.
to the promised land. And also, but at the same time, it's not good, Casey, because it gave me I was battling, to this day I battle with this, the mindset of having to do everything myself.
Yeah.
being frugal, being careful. That side is something that I will never be able to, even though I got lots of money and all that stuff. It's a very difficult mindset to try to get away from, and it took me actual coaching, mentorship that I have paid for. Because there was a period of time where I was sleeping on job sites in the
Yeah.
good old early
Oh
days.
man,
Yeah, because I
the
couldn't afford
revenue of
it, or I
that.
couldn't do it. The guy lied to me. He was supposed to show up. He didn't show up.
Oh,
Contractor's supposed to come. The kitchen guy, didn't show up on time. These types of things. I remember sleeping once. I was sleeping on job sites, and they got to the point where I almost had a nervous breakdown. And
yeah, yeah,
that's when I seeked out. There was a real estate mentor, a person who had a beautiful portfolio, older gentleman. I reached out to him and I paid him a lot of money, but he took me under his wing and he walked
yep,
me through the process and he got me to understand systems and processes that need to be implemented in my life. And
yep.
I've learned, as difficult as it was, I learned that 80% is good enough. You can't get to 100%.
Yep, there you go. Because getting to 100%, that's the 100% is what costs you your health and your wellness and your mental health and everything else. And that man, that's unreal. That's just again that age group and hearing those stories about those times and again, yeah, like you said, the cheese and the milk lines and the I mean, it's just something that my generation will never. I guess we'll understand it to a certain degree, but we'll never have appreciation for it like you all did. And you hear stories about the government basically just begging these people to farm. Again, the farmlands around here, just begging them, just giving them the farm, just saying, "Hey, here it is. Take it, please take it." So we've got to have somebody produce some food. We've got to keep this erosion from taking place, and so on and so on. It's just an unbelievable time period. So
Right.
let's step forward into this a little bit. So we've heard about your parents, the apartment building, and kind of where you got your work ethic from, and where you got your the bank of your knowledge, at least the base of that from, and that it was from your childhood and going through that. Now, when you step into your first very own personal real estate deal, I'm assuming you remember your very first deal, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, and where? Tell us. I want to hear about it. I mean, I want to know the very first deal, and then one of the big things that I ask on this show is fears, because again, a lot of times success is muffled by fear. I mean, it really is. I mean, and that's whether somebody's scared of getting run over crossing the street to get what they want, or scared of somebody scared of going broke because they did whatever. But a lot of that success is muffled by fear. So I'd like to hear about your first experience, and if you can really dial down on maybe some of the fears that you had for yourself. Obviously, maybe you had a young family or something like that. So what was that experience like?
Well, at the time, I didn't have a family. It was in
Okay.
1991. I was into it approximately 4 years of the growing pains of developing a successful business. It wasn't easy, but I was developing a business I started to see consistency in, and then
Hmm.
I was creating relationships along the way, and it was a real estate agent who had this pocket listing of a property that, as I was talking to them, they said, "Hey, there's this opportunity. It was all beat up, and would you like it? Would you want it?" So I was able to make a deal for that property. At the time, I was able to purchase. I'm sorry, I had money set aside to do it, but also at the same time, I had to borrow money in order to be able to finish the thing. And it being the first one, there was a lot of fear, apprehension, because it wasn't my money that I was putting up for this. It was a portion of it was mine, but which if I lost it, it would have been painful. But it's my money, and I would have worked
Yep.
harder to. But if you're borrowing somebody else's money, it's not fun. It's not cool. Like that's one of the things with when you're borrowing money from investors, when you're on the syndication side, I find is like there's a different level of responsibility when you have somebody that you're looking at them and straight in the eye and saying, "Trust me, I can do something with your money, and we're gonna create this, and we're gonna do this, and here are the goals and projections.
Yep.
And there's something holy about that. And then you can't. You got to make sure that you hit all those targets and projections that you set out. So
Yep.
anyway, so I bought this property, and that so it was an off-market deal, and because of being in the business, I was able to get that renovation. It was a very light renovation. I think it cost me at the time $17,000,
Oh wow.
which maybe might have been a chunk of change back then. Looking back on it, not so. But I
Sure.
spent that over a course. I think it took me about 60 days to take care of, and then ultimately I put it up for sale, and I sold it for. I bought it for 47, and I sold it for 93 or four, something like that.
Well,
And then with all
so
the with all the expenses, this, that, and the other, ultimately came in somewhere around that $30,000 mark is what I was able to profit from.
what year? Now tell us what
That
year.
was in 1991.
And now $30,000 is not massive money in '91, but it's definitely nothing to. I mean, you that's probably higher. That one deal is probably higher than the average. I mean, I got to think probably higher than the average salary just in general areas. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. I would even venture to say that at the time probably lawyers, an average lawyer was making that kind of money, for a whole year, and
sure.
I was able
Okay.
to pump that out over, obviously there's risk involved and stuff like that, but I was able to
Yeah.
generate that in 5 months, and that was pretty spectacular. And it
Sure.
opened my
Sure.
eyes to the opportunities of what real estate investing and flipping and all that kind of stuff can do, and then that spurred me on to more. But again, there was a fear because there was a fear associated with doing that first transaction because there's a
Yeah.
lot at stake. So all this money that I saved up over a period of time was being put in this property, and on top of that, I was borrowing money as well, which
Yep.
was pretty heady for a guy that had never done it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and
Yeah, and
so
it's got so yeah. So I mean, those fears that are associated with that. I mean, I think those are somewhat. The big term is evergreen, I guess, if you will, like an evergreen webinar or something. But those fears I think those fears are still evergreen today for a lot of people that are in that same spot, and where you might have been, where you're talking 47,000, we're probably talking 470,000 nowadays for a smaller type of investment or a more of a minor, I guess, investment, if you will. But so when you stepped into that and you made this 30 grand, do you recall exactly? Maybe did you turn around and reinvest that 30 that you made, and obviously maybe in a down payment on something else, or how did that look?
I took a bit of a break at the time, just to sort of analyze what I had just
Yeah,
done, and then
yeah,
I dove in and I bought another one
yeah,
that I flipped, and then I got into doing this like as a serial, like just one after another, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
yeah, and it just it's amazing once you get out of your comfort zone, and most of us, like, if you look at real estate investors that want to be they're lined up sitting on that proverbial fence, and then only two of them will jump off and actually engage and take, risk it, and overcome their fear, and the eight will stay there humming and hawing, and a year later you go back, those eight will still be there on the fence. So
Yep.
I got over my comfort. I got out of my comfort zone. Faced my fears. I was able to overcome it. And once you were able to crack your nut on that first one, then it
Hmm.
became pretty easy. The numbers didn't lie. It was just a matter of replicating and doing it over and over again. So,
That's right.
for folks that are out there listening who are wondering and struggling about when to go into that real estate market, and because there's fears about, I can't find deals, or there's fears that, maybe the market is too high. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yep.
These are all limiting beliefs that you put in way, obstacles that you're putting out in front of you on purpose to not make that leap forward to start getting involved, because there are deals and opportunities all around us in every corner of all across North America. Like I literally,
Right.
through this technology, this Zoom thing, this video thing,
Mhm.
FaceTime, stuff like that, I'm literally with people as we're walking through opportunities, properties, deals, and I'm helping them along the
Yep.
way. And there are deals everywhere, at every corner. I'm helping people everywhere, and it's fun. I enjoy it, and so there's opportunities. So you just got to get out of that comfort zone
Yep.
to be able to start experiencing.
Well, think about it like this, okay? 2000, go back to, like, let's say 2006, okay? 2006, there's never going to be another bad day. Everything is north, everything is up there. There's never another bad day. Never going to be another bad day, okay? Oh, 07, 08. Oh my Lord, I can't believe we did this. Oh my gosh, everybody's hyperventilating and so on and so forth. Now, tell me that you wouldn't like to buy a house or buy a building or buy something today at 2006's prices, no matter what happened between then and now.
Absolutely.
I mean, what does that graph look like? Yeah, you had to sit and you had to have some resolve to be able to do what you all did in the 80s. But then again, step back to that. Tell me that you wouldn't take that apartment building back at the same exact price that your parents paid for it today. I mean, has there the average has never tilted. It's always gone up.
Yep.
And you've had some valleys. I mean, it's unreal to me that people find a way to talk themselves out of these deals. Like you said, they're on the fence, they're on the fence, they're on the fence. And then all of a sudden you're out, you've done 6 or 8 or 10 deals, and you look back and there you're like, hey, are y'all coming, or what are we gonna do here? And it's, to me, it's just it's unfathomable that there's that class exists. But nevertheless, that's what makes the world go around. I mean, I guess.
Casey, the saving grace that my saving grace has always been over the 30 years. I've seen highs and lows in the market a bunch of times. And it also
Yeah,
depends on the markets that you're actively involved in, because there could be a boom cycle in one area and there'd be a bust cycle in another, right?
that's
But in
right.
the
That's right.
areas that I had concentrated, I've seen it all, and the saving grace has been always for me finding the deal. And
Yep.
oftentimes, new real estate investors, as they're coming into the marketplace, they immediately rush into the MLS, like millions of others, hoping that they're going to find something over there. They're scouring it, picking through scraps, and that's not
Yep.
how if you really want to be professional, if you really want to get into this and do it properly, that's not where you go. There are opportunities residing in other places, in relationship building, creating that power team of individuals that are active in your marketplace. And it's through those relationships, like the one I touched on earlier. My first
Yep.
deal came from a relationship with a real estate agent who had a pocket listing and said, you know what, I'm not going to list this. I'm going to
Yep. Here you go.
I'm going to cut the deal with you. And so
Yep.
by cutting that deal, I meant I got something off market. That means that it wasn't the market. I didn't pay market price for it. And that,
You were buying off market before off market was cool. Off market is like the rage. Everybody wants off market. If it's on market, I don't want it. If it's off market, yeah, I'll take 10 of them.
right.
And I'll overpay it off market too. As a real estate on the real estate broker side, all you got to do is breathe the words to somebody. Hey, nobody knows about this, and it's like they can't pick it up fast enough. And so anyway, but well, listen, Vance, so we're kind of running tight on time here, as my listeners know. That's a normal saying on here because we get into so many different facets of life and investing and so on and so forth. But what I'd like to do real quick with the last couple of minutes that we've got, you had mentioned 1 million millionaires by 2030. Now, when I talk about mountains and climbing speed bumps or climbing mountains, this is more like climbing a ladder to Venus. So I want to hear what this looks like, where it goes. I'd like for you to speak to the listeners and tell them how they can fall into being one of your millionaires.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. There is a system and a process associated with starting with nothing and then creating the activities that we need to on a daily basis as new real estate investors to start building, first acquiring that first real estate investment property, and then building that portfolio, so that over a course, because both of us know the power of real estate, the power of leverage, the power of accumulating wealth over a period of time, that individuals that they got started now, that in the next 5 to 10 years, if they accumulated a portfolio of 3 to 4 or 5, 7 properties, that they're renting out and making cash flowing at $500 to $1,000 each, that the value of those properties every single month that goes by, mortgages are being paid down, properties are appreciating, rents are appreciating. It's a beautiful thing. So I'm looking for people that want to put their hand up in the air, that want to join me, because I'll take them to the promised land. Here's a process, here's a system that you need to implement, how to go out there and prospect, how to look at the part of the asset. What are the things you should do, as you shouldn't do? The things that, and then how do we carry forward? In particular, this is my bread and butter. How do we carry forward successfully plan and manage a renovation, value add to the asset to get us to the promised land and hit all those projections and goals and move forward on that? I was doing BRRRR strategy even before there was a BRRRR. Being able to buy, so that was the name of the game. That was the name of the game. And then all of a sudden, a couple of folks put a name on it. But we were doing that a long, long time ago, and nothing's changed. It keeps going. It's the same thing over and over again. So I'm on a mission to get it to as many people as possible, because I truly believe, and you're in the same camp, Casey, with me, that this is the place to be if you really want to create. We can't rely on government to give us a check, when we retire. If you're going to rely on that, God bless you. It's going to be awfully hard, because all the money that they're printing and all the money that they're spending. So if you don't look after yourself, a government ain't going to look after it for you. So I would love to have people join me, and we could get that process started.
Sure. Well, let's do this. Let's tell the listeners how they can join you, how they can get in touch with you, so that whether it be email or website, whatever the case is, I want them to know exactly how to get in touch with you so that they can see what this looks like.
I love, I've got a website, vansturgeon.com, and it's got a wealth of information on there, from podcasts that I've appeared on, articles I've written, events that I've been at. There's a wealth of information there. You can Google me, and there's lots of stuff out there. And if you really want to talk to me, I love talking to people. I'm really, my focus is to do everything I can to help people, to get them to the promised land. And so if you're interested in learning more, by all means, reach out to me through Instagram and Facebook and through my website. And I'd love to hear from you. We'll have a quick chat, and then I'll put you on the right. It's a free, no obligation chat. I just want to be able to put people on the right path so that they can start generating wealth.
Awesome. Well, Van, I can't tell you how much we appreciate having you with us today and sharing your insight into just like how you got to where you are today, and the fact that just what you're doing for humanity in general, in saying, hey guys, all you gotta do is raise your hand, come with me, and let's go. I mean, let's do this. So I want to do this real quick. It's Van, VANSTURGEON.com, and like he said, hit him up on Instagram, all the social channels, whatever your social channel choices. I'm sure there's some way to find an article about him or find some way to get in touch with him, but it's vansturgeon.com. Van, again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate your time, your just everything you bring to the show and bring to the life of people that are listening. So thanks again.
I'm blessed to have met you and talked to you, and thank you very much, Casey. I'd love to come back on to talk some more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And from the CashFlowPro podcast, thank you today for listening. And don't forget to join us for Money Talks Mondays and F Everything Fridays. We will talk to you at the next one. CashFlowPro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.